playoffs. Quite a battle for those first playoff spots. Libby comes out ahead over me. I thought it was a pretty good matchup. We have some more responses from Libby. So I'll begin with mine. When Dawson Knox goes for almost 19 points on Thursday night, or was it Saturday? It was an earlier than Sunday game. I had a bad feeling. To even have AJ Dillon with a chance to win on Monday was a blessing. But concussion protocol just ripped him out. I did a terrible job of introducing this because we have a random face in my camera, and that's our brother James. Everyone should know him. He's just going to sit in, and this episode we are going to list grievances for the Festivus celebration. And he's going to bring some grievances up for us while he listens to Tim and I talk about a league that he's not in. Yeah. But congratulations to Libby. We also had Wes win. Who was Wes playing, Tim?
Wes, what was he playing? Who was he playing last week?
Yeah.
Actually, let me check that. I only have this week's scoreboard up. He played Lucas. Yeah, I know, which is kind of surprising because I think we both liked Lucas's team a lot. But Wes also talked about when we had him on about his team at such a high variance. He's kind of a wild card like your team, and he just had a really good week.
Yeah, I think he picked Lucas when he was on with us last week to win it all. And then ended up beating him by almost 40 points.
He can thank second half Kirk Cousins for giving him a nice 32-point cushion. Pro Bowler Kirk Cousins, if I might add.
MVP?
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is that? Maybe.
Yeah. Ross dominates, just has a killer week. 166 points, beats Tom, who actually had a very serviceable week. I'm going to apologize for how easy I picked him when we did our playoff preview show, that he was just an automatic win. He puts up 130 points. Unfortunately, he was playing Ross, though.
The toughest look of the entire week is Seth, who got a chance to pick his opponent and ended up putting up the lowest amount of scores in the entire winner's bracket, and nobody that he would have picked would have beaten anyone. So tough look for Seth, who we thought was really good.
Yeah, so Seth wins the final game that we haven't talked about fully yet. Sam wins 117-92. Sam just hung around, and now he's on the precipice of getting to the championship game. And actually, as we look ahead to his matchup, he is favored to currently win now.
Playing Ross again. Is it the fourth time this season or the third time?
I believe it's the third time because we purposely switched up the schedule so it didn't happen a third time, and then it happened a third time in the playoffs anyway.
Sam versus Ross is a classic rivalry, James, in our league.
It's true.
And just in life in general, I'd assume.
So James, I'll rope you in. I don't know if you guys do this in your league, but whoever finishes first and second overall in the regular season gets to pick their matchups. One was successful. Libby picked me. I was the third overall team, but he chose to play me as the first overall seed and won. Seth was number 2, played Sam, who was the 6th, and lost. Do you guys do that? How do you feel about that?
Ironically, I think Wes, who was the manager of our league for a while, I think we either tried it or thought about trying it for a bit. I think we did it one year because I think I got picked by someone. I like it more. I like it when it comes to actual NFL playoffs too. I also like it for the NBA too because I think it's just more fun. It just creates rivalries more because you're just going to pick someone and then they're going to be angry. They can't do anything, but they're going to be angry they got picked. So I just like it more. It breeds more contempt.
What if I told you that our commissioner who made the rule up and was in first place
actively against it?
Well, hey, it worked out for him this year. He reverse jinxed it enough times. He even texted me on Monday and reverse jinxed it again about 5 minutes before AJ Dillon had to go out of the game. So thanks, Libby, for just really icing that momentum that I was starting to feel. It was a very funny exchange because AJ Dillon scored a second touchdown, and I knew basically it was 3 touchdowns or 2 and a bunch of yards, and I was going to be right there. and he scores the second one, and Libby immediately texts me a gif of, sweating face. And I was like, I'm not even going to begin hoping yet. I'm not hoping, but I was kind of hoping. And then concussion protocol, you see the blue tent or whatever. And I was like, and then I didn't even watch the rest of the Packer game. I shut it off and went to
It was
If you want the complete irony of that, for my playoff game, I had AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones. I needed 11 points, and I put Aaron Jones in, and that first half was complete and utter torture for me. And honestly, the concussion is the only reason why I won my playoff game. So
butterfly
I
effect.
from it.
Yeah. So going forward, Tim, I've got Sam hanging on to this win here. He's projected for 115, Ross for 103. Libby's projected to win pretty handily, 131 to 114. I still see Libby taking it. I see Sam and Libby final.
I was going to say a Ross and Libby final, which seems inevitable because they've been the two most dominant teams. You're not wrong, though, that Sam is projected to beat Ross. But it just feels like a fitting end to the season to have Libby and Ross duking it out. And I'm going to stick to my last week prediction and saying that Ross wins it all. I'm sticking to it.
All right. Yeah. I think, well, obviously with the amount of points that I put up, I wouldn't have beat any team in the playoffs, but I would like to see Ross versus Libby more, but I think Sam's going to end up, just the way the weeks worked out, winning this, and then I just think Libby's inevitable. With
a 6-8 record, Sam, it's a losing record winning the league. I don't know how often that happens, but interesting.
But highly power ranked by us throughout the year.
Yeah, we did hype him up.
If you want my 2 cents, I don't like Libby as a person, so go with
There you go.
That's a great segue into airing of the grievances.
Yeah, let's get into that because that's going to be a majority of what we're going to end up talking about here. So we had asked everybody in the league to send in some grievances. About half of you are good.
General grievances.
General.
Sorry, go ahead.
About half of you were nice enough to respond with your 500 character or less grievances. Congratulations on taking the 5 minutes out of your day to do so. Those of you that didn't, I'm sure
we'll air some grievances about you.
But it was a lot of fun getting to read through a little bit of those. So Tim, I'll let you kick it off, whichever one of those you want to read.
I'm going to go, let's start with Ross, because he gave us the idea. So credit to Ross for feeling his Seinfeld oats and giving us this idea, which I think is a great way to end the season, especially for me, who was terrible at fantasy all year long. So Ross has 3 different grievances to air. His first grievance is to Marcus Mariota. He says, Kyle Pitts could have been Marcus Mariota's best friend, and you wasted him. Then you quit the team after he got hurt. Why couldn't you have done that in week 2 and let the offense be run by someone who appreciates Kyle Pitts, whose injury, I feel, prevented him from winning Luke's LVP award? I have to agree there. Kyle Pitts was very disappointing. And look, we talked about LVP last week, and Kyle Pitts could have been up there.
Yeah, but Ross is right. He said that because of the injuries, he just didn't play a full season, whereas Najee Harris played a full season and was terrible.
And the second airing of grievances is to John Wolford, backup for the Rams. Good for you, John, getting a Super Bowl ring after being an undrafted free agent. That's pretty neat, but I think you should have retired on top. So do the Rams, since you left Cooper Kupp out to dry and got him knocked out for the year. Nicely done. Feeling salty for his Cooper Kupp injury, which it didn't hurt him in the playoffs, so. But his last grievance is to our Commissioner Libby. Sorry your team is a complete juggernaut, and you got to choose your playoff opponent. You complained that you could only make the wrong choice, but you won. I hope that means we can keep the most entertaining rule we have.
It's a fun rule. Especially since for some reason we end up having like low seeds get hot at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's luck.
Yeah, it is almost like it's complete luck, and the regular season doesn't really matter at all, except for just being good enough to get into the playoffs. All right. We've got our next one from Stefan. Festivus may only come once a year, but I've been celebrating it for months now. As every week I look at my roster and say, I got a lot of problems with you people. Seeing any feats of strength from my players would be as rare as seeing Kramer's friend Bob Sacamano. My draft and my season have been outrageous, egregious, and preposterous. The season has been more tragic than a cruise on the Andrea Doria. I should have become a marine biologist. There have been two Festivus miracles. One, I was never given into the temptation to pick up Antonio Brown from the waivers in a panic. And it was great and an honor to play in the same league as Mr. Buttside. Will it be possible to ever do better than that? Anyway, I have to go put my son in a headlock.
Stefan really leaned into the Seinfeld references, so I have to give him a ton of credit for that.
So I have to admit, I know Festivus. I've never seen the Festivus episode. I've seen many Seinfeld episodes. I have not seen that one. And it's just one of those stupid Luke things where people talk about it too much. And it's the only thing I can kind of halfway hate about Seinfeld. And so I just have refused to watch it. But I understand the sentiments and appreciate it, Stefan, that you're able to give a little bit more of the lore than me, who is just going to complain about stuff.
Okay. Seth, noted quiet person of the league, has 5 different grievances. So let's go. Number 1.
Gotta be careful.
I kick myself every year for having too many fantasy teams, which means I get lost cheering for one guy in one team who ends up destroying me on another team. This is very true. Multiple league problems. Number 2, I hate getting the decision wrong when choosing between a couple of players to start. I always get it wrong. Luckily, as was well documented on this very podcast, my team was so top heavy this year that I didn't have to make those decisions very often. Number 3, I hate the ridiculously thin waiver wire. Number 4, I hate that my team choked out in round 1 like every choking team that ever choked. And number 5, kickers. Enough said, except for Mason Crosby.
But yeah, Lucas will join you in the except for Mason Crosby. Which, good segue, Luke.
Speaking of.
Yeah, Lucas is next, airing his grievances. All right, here's Lucas's list. Patrick Mahomes went for $9 in the draft, Ross. I let that happen, but so did 10 of you other bums. For that, we suck.
It's true.
I drafted Christian Watson for $1 and couldn't be patient with him for long enough. That sucks. I miss having Derrick Henry as my team's identity. It sucks. My trade of Derrick Henry for Hurts and Jonathan Taylor worked out pretty well for me until JT sprained his ankle after 1.8 fantasy points in round 1 of the playoffs. That really sucked.
The Patrick Mahomes thing, I feel like it was a doomed season when that actually happened. That like the clock run out in the Patrick Mahomes auction and everyone was like, wait a minute, what just happened? Oh man. Okay. Last one is from
no, we got one from Libby, so do Wes's and I'll do Libby's.
Oh, okay. All right. We got one from Wesley, or we got 2 from Wesley. My Festivus grievances are hamstring injuries that leave players questionable for 6 straight weeks, so you never know if they're going to play or be out until 3 minutes before the game. Might be a like subtle Keenan Allen nod, not sure.
Or Mike Williams.
Or that. And Kyle Pitts. Just Kyle Pitts. That's it. That's the grievance.
All right, and then our faithful commissioner will leave us on, well, for the people that actually responded, we'll leave it on this note. I do not have any grievances to air because I am the commish, so allow me to apologize instead, which is good because he should apologize. He was way better than everybody the entire year. He has nothing to complain about. I am sorry to Drew for not allowing him to keep Javonte Williams. Maybe we can let him keep him for $25 next year just because of the trauma he had to go through this season. I am sorry to Luke for picking him as my first round matchup. I am sorry on his behalf for the concussion protocol robbing him of a win. If Dylan doesn't go out, he probably wins that matchup. Also, I'm sorry for Mr. Buttside. Not really, though. I'm sorry to Lucas and Seth for their losses in their playoff games. That sucks. And I am sorry, lastly, to Matthew for getting angry when he screwed up our draft. And I'm also sorry for driving up to DeAndre Swift. I hope Luke and Tim do feats of strength in keeping with the Festivus tradition. Someone find an aluminum pole.
Good.
I don't. James, you're the Seinfeld expert here. Actually, what are the feats of strength?
You just do feats of like you wrestle each other and like show off how strong you are.
Okay.
Well, we're not in the same house, so
Well, two of us are.
You two can wrestle, and I can watch.
I've never wrestled, James.
I'll have to charge you.
We are in the same weight class, though. No, that was not true most of our lives. All right, so James, since you're the guest, technically we'll allow you to air your grievances.
Do you want to like snake draft this? Everyone does one. I
Can
have
you-
multiple.
Can you explain a snake draft to me first, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Well, when you go up and down a grocery aisle,
So what side is the name brand stuff on of the grocery? So you go to from the name brand to the non-name brand. But then you grab another
only extended.
name brand or non-name brand and then come back to the name brands just in case.
Oh, okay. So it's like a zigzag.
And you just keep doing that.
All right. So I'm gonna go with my number one because I think both of you are these people. My main airing of grievances is the points for versus points against person who always brings up is like, well, if you look at my team, like I did draft a good team, but I just the points against, you can't overcome it. Or there's the someone who complains about someone else who has low points for, but the lowest points against. No one cares that you were drafted a good team but got unlucky. Just shut up.
So you're saying shut up to the person who complains about points
shut up to
against.
the person who complains about points for, points against. It happens to everyone. It just wasn't your year.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's true. It is annoying. I hope I did it less this year.
You did,
because
actually.
It favored me. No, actually, no, it didn't. I had a bunch of points for most of the year. It doesn't matter. James is right. It is a crappy thing to do and talk about. Tim, go ahead. I don't think you'll take any. Well, you might, but
I only have one airing of a grievance.
I'm making them the fly to at least get 3 rounds.
Okay, well, I've got a couple other ones, but I'll just start with my team in general, which is terrible. But I have to. My main airing of agreements is to Cam Akers, whom I drafted for $32, 32 whole dollars of my fantasy budget. I drafted for Cam Akers, and he requested a trade, was benched, then wasn't traded at the trade deadline. And then only in the last few weeks has he decided to start playing football and score touchdowns when I didn't need him to. So Cam Akers, I hate to call out actual players who do actual player jobs, but you kind of screwed me over.
Yeah, I'll start with my team and this and fantasy football in general. I thought about it long and hard about what I hated most about my team specifically, and I'm going to jump on Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott sucks as a fantasy football quarterback.
He's a quarterback.
Well, that's the problem is he's teasing enough with some of the stuff. Like he throws almost 3 touchdowns every single game. And the Cowboys offense is considered to be good and they win a decent amount. But he does not get over 20 fantasy points almost ever. And if he does, like he did this last week, then he throws interceptions to bring him back to only 20 points. Dak Prescott he's like, it's weird because he's almost a better Aaron Rodgers. And the Aaron Rodgers complaint is that like he wins football games for the Packers, but throws like 2 touchdowns and 200 yards and is really bad for fantasy. Dak is basically the same way, only because I've had Rodgers and not Dak in the past, I didn't expect it fully with Dak. And it's just, he's really tough because he's really hard going back to what Seth said to bench. But then when he's playing, you always feel like you should have picked somebody ahead of him. And then for the snake draft, I'll wrap back around and say my biggest fantasy football in general is the tight end spot. I hate tight ends. They're the worst. There's only one good tight end. We realize that now. We all try to make Mark Andrews a thing. He's fine. But Kelsey is so much better than every other player at that position. I think for our league, it'll never happen, but you remove the tight end position, you keep that wide receiver flex position that Libby brought in this year and just completely remove the tight end. You can either start Kelsey as your flex or wide receiver for somehow given wide receiver eligibility. If not, you got 2 flex spots at the wide receiver, tight end, or just the regular flex position. Get rid of tight end position. It sucks. There's not enough good players.
I endorse that. And to piggyback on that for mine, I'm going to say defenses and defensive scoring. There should be no such thing as negative defensive points. That should not be a thing. It should just go down to 0. And no matter how many yards or whatever or points you give up, it should just stay at 0. There should be no negative defensive points. And the scoring in general should not be so high for touchdowns.
Well, case in point, the Colts Vikings game. The Colts had 15 fantasy points. They led all defenses and gave up 39 points and lost. They scored 2 defensive touchdowns, and that basically just makes it so that you can't have a bad day.
Defenses are dumb and random, and they make, I don't like them.
All right. I'm gonna go with the 2 true outcomes running back, aka Jamal Williams. You can't start them because it's either they get a touchdown and you get 15 points, or they get 5 yards, maybe 15, and then they don't score any. But then Jamal just keeps 12 weeks in a row scoring touchdowns, and eventually you start him, and then he will never score a touchdown on your team. He will only score them on your bench. It just kills you inside because you never pick the right week. It's impossible to. And then I'm going to wrap around with, I think, my strongest grievance. It's the general idea of questionable. I don't know what that means. It doesn't mean anything. There's just a Q on random players. I think they just make it up. I think they just put it on players. And then almost always it means nothing until you start one. And they're like, actually, they got downgraded to doubtful, which also doesn't mean anything. That just means out. Doubtful means out. Questionable means in, and sometimes out. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, I was reminded of that this year, that probable is no longer a designation. So probable is now questionable. But the other thing to piggyback on that idea is the new concussion protocol rules are just going to really mess with fantasy football. Because just like with Dylan, 1 hit and he's just done. That's the rest of the game gone. And that's going to start happening more and more with big players.
It's true. And different teams handle the questionable status differently. Like Belichick will just throw questionables on whoever he wants to, and other teams will be a little bit more discretionary. So you kind of have to know who the coach is too. I have a not fantasy football grievance, but it counts because we talked about it on this podcast. I have a grievance with the both of you for suggesting that I watch Star Wars Andor, which was a complete waste of my time.
Wow.
That is 12 hours of my life. This 12 hours of my life I am never going to get back. It is
the greatest Star Wars show that is so much better than Mandalorian.
Let me finish. It's one of the worst pieces of content that Star Wars has put out since Solo: A Star Wars Story. It's bad. It's real bad. It was boring. I didn't care about the characters. I cared a lot more about Cassian Andor in 2 hours of Rogue One, which is an incredible movie. I bought into his character. I was sad when he sacrificed himself in the end. And Andor completely undid that in 12 episodes with absolutely no character development. I don't care about him any more than I cared about him when I watched Rogue One. It is a bad show. It's bad.
I promise, James, this was not entrapment. No. I did not know this was happening. I did not ask you to come on here to get rated. I told him weeks ago, I said, if you bring up bad stuff about Andor around James, he gets really upset.
I love Andor. It was one of my favorite. The prison heist was beautiful. Aldhani was beautiful. It was the greatest dialogue that's ever been in a Star Wars ever. I don't understand this. You can hang out with your children and watch Mandalorian, which is made for giant marketing and to sell toys, while I enjoy my dialogue-heavy Star Wars.
Listen, you are in the majority, okay? So it's not like you are
right.
It's not like you're wrong for liking the show. Lots of people like the show. I read reviews afterwards to be like, why don't I like this? And why does everybody else like it? And I can't. I can't really figure it out, but I just didn't like it. And I saw somebody said that it was the best content Star Wars has put out since the original trilogy, and I wanted to say, Mandalorian, ever heard of it?
Better
Obi
than
Obi-Wan, ever heard of it? Star Wars prequels, ever
Obi-Wan.
heard of them?
Oh, Obi-Wan was so much worse than Andor. So much.
Oh man. Okay, this is an entirely different podcast discussion, but I knew you were coming on, and I had to address this because it just wasn't good. I'm sorry, it was not good.
Verbal GIF. You're breaking my heart, Anakin Padme. So that's just it.
Liar!
Oh, it's the true lies. You stabbed me in the heart.
All right. There's no response. I was so excited for you to watch it because I thought you would love it. No,
What? I mean, can you try to sell? Like, what did you like about it? What was?
It was some of the best dialogue I've heard in just a TV show in general. I loved learning about the Empire and the inner workings and about how the Empire became the villain, not Palpatine or Darth Vader, just like this huge, giant dictatorship taking over and then just suffocating people. Dude, you didn't like Andy Serkis?
No, the Prison Break episode it's a great gimmicky Prison Break episode. It was just like, what if Shawshank Redemption was Star Wars? It wasn't.
Only one guy escapes in Shawshank.
It wasn't.
I thought the prison design was really, really cool. I thought the kind of traps they had set up in there was cool. I thought the structure, the way it's multiple levels, I'm giving good reasons why. I thought that Serkis if Serkis was in more of the show, he could get bad, but I think he's able to like heat check through the 3 episodes that he's in pretty well. And then I think just the last 6 episodes of the show are just untouchably good. Like this is a Star Wars story, so its ceiling can only be so high. And it could be really, really bad, and I thought they pulled it off really well. Stellan Skarsgård is really good.
Are you telling me the Luthen speech did nothing for you?
No, it didn't do anything. What? This is not a Star Wars show. It could have been about literally any oppressive government and any rebellion against it. There's nothing to fit this in with the Star Wars universe. Absolutely nothing. You can tell, and the creator of the show isn't even a Star Wars fan. I was reading about this.
Tony Gilroy?
He's amazing.
He's great.
Yeah.
I know he made a great he made a great rebellion show, whatever. He put characters on it, and they're like, hey, let's just slap the Star Wars logo on it, stick a few aliens in the background, call it good. And it's not crafted well for the universe. Mandalorian was perfect. It is perfection. That show had me hooked in literally 1 minute of the show. I was hooked on Mandalorian, and after 12 episodes of Andor, I just was kind of confused. I was confused.
I'm done.
I mean, it's no Phantom Menace, so
it's not. And like,
also, Solo was an okay movie.
No, Solo is bad. Solo is the worst Star Wars movie of all time, and it's not even close. And the prequels are great. And look for my upcoming 5,000-word essay on why you should actually like the prequels coming out to a bookstore near you in 3 years. But that's all. I didn't mean to.
So bad. It's really hard it's really hard when there's a 2-hour middle to your trilogy that is terrible. It's so bad. I've had to revise all my prequel takes because Clone Wars is really, really an abomination.
Attack of the Clones is like actually a great move.
Attack of the Clones, whatever.
Listen, I don't want to derail this podcast. I don't want to derail this podcast any more than I already have, but if you want to hear some prequel theories, let me talk at you for like 4 hours and all of it.
I'm staring at this light until I go blind, so I never have to see your face.
It's fine.
I burn my soul for the sunshine I'll never see.
To wrap up our grievances, that was a heck of a one. I think the main one was the tight end one that I wanted to get off.
You can't pick the old grievance you had for your last grievance.
I know. I'm trying to think to see if I can round out a third. I like doing things in threes. Threes is the best.
Do you have a pop culture take that you want to come back to? Atlanta was really good. The Atlanta one was that was a great season of TV. So we're 50-50 on our pop culture recommendations.
Atlanta's great. I've been pretty consistent saying Yellowstone is not that great, so just wait for it to all come out and then binge it if you enjoy it. It's not worth watching week to week. I do have a huge one. I already threw this by James. The best show on TV this year. It's really close with Atlanta's last season, but I thought The Bear. It's on Hulu. It was an FX show. The Bear is fantastic. It's a 30-minute episode, really quick 8-episode watch. You can finish it up in a night, basically. It is really super good. It's about a Michelin star chef that his brother dies and he takes over his Chicago beef shop in Chicago. And it's just really fun, really cool. I like cooking stuff. And it finally combined good drama, good filmmaking. The tight quarters of the kitchen is really fun to shoot in. And the story is actually compelling. So watch The Bear on FX.
I bought Tim a VHS copy of Andor season 1, so I'm gonna have to figure out a new gift for him.
VHS.
You know what? I'm gonna watch through it and not rewind it now.
You're not. I thought that it'd be fun to spring this on you, but I realized the trap that I was walking. It's a trap. It's a trap.
I love that show. This is just hard. I don't understand.
Well, we need to talk. We'll talk more. We need to talk more.
All right. Well, congratulations, Libby, most likely on winning the championship.
Go West.
We're pulling for people. I'm pulling for Libby. I want it to just be a dominant year. And, he's had to move around a bunch and seems to have a lot of stuff going on. So this will just be a nice little cherry on top for him. We'll be back next week talking about the final game. Anything else, Tim?
I'm ready for fantasy football to be over. It was a bad season in both of my leagues, but I will say very tempered by a wild Viking season, which is why I haven't been complaining about my team too much, because I'd rather have real football be better than fantasy football.
Yeah. Go Michigan. Dominate all the way. They're the only thing that matters. Packers, do whatever you want. Nobody cares.
Nothing matters. Life is pointless.
Yeah.
I think I broke James. I broke James. I'm sorry.
Family doesn't matter. Dom Toretto lied to me.
Christmas is stupid. And there's no reason for the season.
I'm never drinking a Modelo again.
No.
It was Corona. Never mind.
The
joke didn't even work.
Rip down every single one of Mom and Dad's Christmas lights and just bask in the darkness and watch Andor on repeat and just talk about the floors being lava.
Football.
Football.
You have to say football. That's the thing. Say football.
I said football.
Oh, happy
word.
Festivus.
Happy
Festivus.
Later.
Well
done, Festivus.